Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to OAAA Chief Marketing Officer, Stephen Freitas.
Good morning, good morning. Oh, I'm glad to see so many faces still here. Thank you for staying. And I think we've got a great session for you today. We've got the specialists here. And it's always a real interesting conversation with this group. So I'd like to bring them out, please, our panel. You know, when we were preparing the conference, Nancy and I were talking about who should do this, and she said, well, Stephen, you do it. And I said, well, I think that's a great idea. These are all friends of mine, so I want to introduce you to this panel of friends, because it's always great to be able to sit up on stage and hang out with some friends. So first we've got the President Chief Operating Officer from Billups, David Krupp. We've got Ryan Law. There we are. We've got Christian Vollerslev, and we have Michael Lieberman. And come over here. And they're doing this at the very end. You see, they're taunting us. Oh, all right, come on down. Come on down. Oh, here comes the chair. Hi, Michael.
Oh, I need. No, I have to use that.
We're having a chair moment because somebody showed up 30 seconds ago. Somebody was drinking until 7 a.m., I understand, and playing blackjack. Three. All right. Well, he finally made it. Say, Michael, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for coming. Now we have the correct number of chairs, the correct number of out-of-home specialists, and now we're going to ask some questions. So I want to, first of all, you know, everyone knows you, all of you, but they don't really know you. So, you know what, I'd love to start out just by asking each of you sort of, how did you actually get into the out-of-home business? Christian, how did you get into the business, and how long ago?
Yeah, so I was working for Denso Aegis in the Nordics in Denmark, overseeing two of their businesses. The guy who was running Posterscope at the time was, you know, given an offer he couldn't refuse. He went to London, and the CEO of Denso Aegis there, the European version of Nick Bryan, if you will, asked me if I was interested in working in Posterscope. And I obviously was.
Fantastic. We're glad you're here. And we had a winner last night that was a Swedish brand, and it was thanks to you we pronounced it properly.
Well, I'm glad I could get one of them right, because I think you gave me a lot of challenges, English not being my first
we do that with
my
the
second language.
We like to give you the tough ones. Michael, tell us about you. Why'd you get into the business?
Sure. I had an agency background, but I'd actually left and joined two mobile startups, really thinking that was the move forward. What became interesting was mobile actually got really unimaginative very quickly, and the place where that knowledge seemed to be most useful was, at the time a few years ago, kind of surprisingly, out of home. And that's, I think, the conversations that we're having today are those that started then, which is, to some degree, we sort of ruined mobile. How do we do it smarter and better through other channels and take all the learnings we had and bring them somewhere else? And so I spoke actually with David at the time, and he offered me this fantastic opportunity to join the industry.
We're glad you're here. Arena?
I was working at Gray and simultaneously applying to law schools. I was very fond of international political law until Gray totally ruined that for me. I realized really quickly that I needed a creative outlet, and somebody that I knew in the out-of-home business introduced this wonderful world to me, and this was pre-tech, pre-data, and I just really noticed a ton of growth and innovation, and I wanted to be part of it. So that was about 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back ever since.
I was working at a full-service agency doing media, and one of my old bosses, who was a mentor of mine, had left and gone to Mindshare, and he said, listen, why don't you come over and talk to us about some roles? And the media jobs, the director jobs weren't things that I was interested in. I sort of had this idea that I wanted to start getting operational experience, and it turns out that they were launching Kinetic at the time, and they said, well, why don't you talk to us about that? And I said, I don't know a damn thing about out-of-home. I mean, I know what billboards are, but you know, I don't have any experience there, and we continued the conversation, and it just felt like the right fit. And I thought, well, I'll get some operational experience, and that'll be a great stepping stone job. I had no idea I would like it as much as I did, and I would find it as creatively interesting as I did. And so the stepping stones just ended up being within Kinetic for a long time until opportunities elsewhere took me elsewhere. So sort of a happy occurrence, I guess.
Well, that's great.
Well, after college, I graduated right after 9/11, and jobs were not that easy to come by in New York. I originally wanted to be on the creative side and get into copywriting, and wasn't having much luck there. And interestingly enough, my sister-in-law's aunt worked in finance at Zenith, and it happened to be an opening in the out-of-home group there. And so I started working out of home, and my very first week, they just basically dropped a bunch of folders on my desk and said, pick out the boards that are near the bars you go to, and that was the first buy I did for Stoli. So which was a really interesting way to get into it. And then from there I went on to Outdoor Vision, which then became Posterscope here in the US, and then I'd spent some good amount of time there, and then started Hyperspace there, which we kind of brought over from the UK, and then moved my way over to Omnicom, where I started D-Theory for Outdoor Media Group, and then 3 years ago took over Outdoor Media Group.
Yeah.
After I fired Dave Uculo. Finally.
We
Retired
always
him
wondered
anyway.
what happened there.
Hey, Stephen, how did you
We
get
heard
into the
stories.
business? Stephen, how did you get into the business?
How did I get in the business? I was working for some small agencies in San Francisco, and this headhunter called me and said they're looking for a marketing person at a billboard company. And I said, what's a billboard company? You know, because you're right, when you don't really know the business that well, you don't ever think about the fact that somebody owns those assets. You know, I lived in San Francisco all my life and growing up, and you'd see the beautiful Skyway bulletins, but you never really think about who actually owns them. And so they said, well, there's this company over in Oakland. So I went over to, it was Patrick Media at the time, and they had this terrible office in the docks of Oakland, which was the way it was once, you know. And it was like almost like a double wide kind of thing. And I went and I thought, okay, I'll be very polite. I'll sit through the interview, but there's nowhere in hell I'm doing this, you know, over here in the docks. And after about an hour and a half interview, I said, oh my God, this is an amazing industry. Yes, I'll take the job.
Very cool.
And I've been doing it for 30 years.
Awesome.
I would never leave it. Yeah. So, and by the way, Clear Channel, which is the company now, you have a fabulous office in San Francisco now. It's great. You know, we heard from Rashad Tabakawala yesterday. I think all of you heard him. He was talking about some research we've done and some perceptions that national brands have about out-of-home. Have you found those same sort of understandings or ideas about out-of-home that brands have? Or how do you talk to your brands about out-of-home, and what sort of misconceptions do they typically have about our medium that you have to correct, that your folks are correcting?
Want to start?
Yeah. Yeah, Rena?
At Talon, you know, we take that very seriously. There's a philosophy and a DNA that we call Smarter Standard. And the approach is that, you know, we're held accountable. Everything that we pull together for our clients, it goes beyond measurement, right? We want to make sure that there's some sort of an outcome. You know, we have built technology to support our services, and really demonstrate that, yes, of course, strategy is really important. Data obviously plays a massive part, but, you know, creatively as well, right? What are the right solutions? What are the right canvases to supply our clients with for them to be able to voice their creations? So I think that, you know, Rashad did a really great job and hit the nail on the head, and it really does exemplify, you know, what we're doing in Talon.
I would say I think a lot of what came out of the work Rashad did was pretty much validating. I think for a lot of our clients, you know, we have some clients who've historically spent in this space for a long time and do some really awesome work, and I think they really get, you know, what out-of-home is best at its core, and that's the big, the bold, the brand awareness piece. And I think where we certainly also have many clients now entering the space, which is exciting, that are very much performance-driven, and how we can start to kind of find a middle ground to where we have clients that historically want to continue to use out-of-home in a way that I think we're all used to, you know, for its boldness, its impact, and its ability to kind of have mass reach, and find that middle ground now where we're seeing new clients come into the space from a performance, that are very performance driven, and get them to a little bit closer to that end of the spectrum, and then have our clients that have historically been in the space for the mass reach and the impact, to bring them closer to the middle, to bring some performance aspects to their campaign planning, and really just trying to have a really nice balanced approach to the marketplace.
Yeah, a balanced approach.
I think that's what we're talking a lot. I mean, you're talking performance, you're talking outcomes, and I think 15 years ago we weren't at my first conference, and for many years up into that. We're investing a ton of money in being able to identify how is the impact of what we spend going to directly affect the sales, or the throughput, or the traffic, or the downloads that are necessary and critical for your business to grow.
Right.
So I think the misconceptions we're working against oftentimes are, no, it's not an awareness media any longer. It's a transactional media.
Transactional.
And you can honestly drive commerce through this in a real and material way. And certainly you can gain competitive advantage because we're underspent in this marketplace dramatically.
Well, similar question, Christian. So what sort of problem solving are your brands and agencies, partners that you're working with, what are they asking for from you and for your people mostly? What kind of support do they really, really look for today?
Yeah, so I think they're first and foremost looking for strategic support, and they're looking for us to help them grow, to grow their business, to retain their clients, and to increase what the clients are spending. So I think that from our aspect, and tying it back to your question about Rashad, where we've seen digital and technology disrupt and fragment other channels. Less than 18% of the millennials are watching TV. 22% of the mobile impressions are to non-humans. That's the equivalent of $3.5 billion wasted. What we're seeing is us enabled in that space and intersection that allows us to talk to our clients about strategic challenges. So in short, I think they're asking us to help them solve their business challenges and create growth.
Michael, are you seeing similar things?
We're seeing similar things, and I think what's been said has sort of an up and a downside to it. We have lots of fans throughout our agency and brand clients, people who say and who have told Rashad in that case they love out of home, they're champions for it. They don't want to put in the work to push us forward, though. It's up to us. We have to put in the measurement platforms. We have to bring the data in. We have to show them that value. They're asking us the question. They're saying, help us grow, help us figure out how to move forward. But by the way, I have my own problems. You figure it out. And frankly, as an industry, when you saw Nancy's conversation speech yesterday talking about unity and collaboration, and then you tie that into what Rashad said about coming up with a single clear story, and whether it's the out-of-home plus mobile story, which we really believe in, or another, we all need to speak in that one voice. We need to back it up with one story and really hammer it home, because no one's going to hand us 4% more. We can say that's our aggressive growth target or even a conservative one. No one else, they've all got their own problems. We need to figure out how to grow this, scale it, and move ourselves forward and do it all together.
Michael, you said something, though, that's interesting to me, because nobody's going to give us the 4%. Like, I thought, and I'm sure everybody in the room would agree, at least those who I was talking to, but many more, what Nick Bryan did yesterday in the keynote was like a clarion call for the industry. And yet the one thing, and I loved what he said, everything he said, but the one thing I was waiting for him to say at the end of it is, that's why I have instructed everybody within Dentsu and Carat and across Aegis to spend 8% in the United States. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do that. And I looked at the corporate reports for the holding companies. 40% of total spend is across digital, 40, 38, 30-something. It doesn't happen by accident. I think that happens to an extent by design. So at what point does, and we're relatively small in all of this, but at what point does Kelly Clark or Nick or John Wren have to come out and say, we want X amount of dollars. We believe in this media, and we expect that you're going to spend to that level. And if not, we're going to hold you accountable to that because we believe in this media so much.
What do you think?
I think first and foremost that if Nick or any of us instructed our agencies to spend 8%, it would backfire quite quickly. So I think what's happening behind the scenes is making strategic, proactive acquisitions that will enable that growth to come based on our ability to do better different work for our clients. So Dentsu Aegis is investing almost $2 billion in acquiring Merkle, 242 million PII, with an average of 1,007 attributes across those, looking at how can we move from just creating audiences into activation with our PAM partners to looking at how that could actually happen in out-of-home, is indeed Dentsu Aegis, Nick Bryan, and our executive team investing in moving us from those 4 to 8%. Because I agree with you, and tremendous respect to this industry, and being fairly new to this industry, seeing, I think, an open mindset, a great collaboration, and first and foremost, I think a friendly attitude is amazing. But Nick is absolutely right, that 4% is not enough. The UK is at 10, France is at 8, the Scandinavian countries where I'm from is almost double. So, you know, there are billions of dollars that we could all be making, and it's about continuing that alignment, and it's about continuing to lean into that space. And I think considering the size and scale of the Dentsu Aegis network, we are trying our best. Are we there? No. But are we moving the right way? Absolutely.
I think there's also, you know, from a holding company perspective, and some of you may not be as in tune with it, is there's some bigger issues, you know, at hand. So, for example, the decline of linear TV and what's happening there, and where a lot of Omnicom and other holding companies' revenue comes through in terms of video and Prime Video, and trying to sort that out. So there are other things in place that are kind of probably gotta come first in terms of, and that's the reality. Not saying that it's okay or not. And that's also being directed from clients. It's not like we're not just making that up and telling clients that's what needs to happen. Clients are directing that, and they're very concerned that they're going to have to spend much more money to reach far less people in TV, and that's a legitimate.
So that should be good for out-of-home, though.
It absolutely should be, and I would say where we've found success is the clients that we're working with, when our clients that are spending in out-of-home space spend a much more, a disproportionate amount more than the average. For most of our, and from a category perspective, our clients from category to category are spending more, almost double more than their nearest competitor. And I think where we've found success is getting closer to our key agencies like an OMD, a PhD, a Hearts and Science, integrating with their teams, working more as de facto strategy, not just investment, really bringing more to the table from what we can provide from a creative standpoint, and really from an education standpoint in terms of everything that's happening from an omni-channel approach, which obviously we're trying to get to, just being involved in those conversations much earlier rather than just waiting for some money to be tossed over the fence.
I think that's exactly right. You know, we can't be transactional, right? We can't just wait for it to happen. And to your point, Christian, there's a massive level of investment on our part, you know, unfortunately. But there is an upside. You know, we can start processing first-party data. We can marry that with, you know, the available data that's out there, luckily, right? Because it puts us in a great position. And we just need to be very pliable, right? And we have to work according to their needs. So whether it's strategy, whether it's creative, whether it's production, you know, we need to be able to fit that mold. So we have to be very mindful of client needs. And everything that we put together, it's got to be iron-proof. It's got to be ironclad. You've got to have a result for all. You can't just say, well, let's just hope that it works, right? That's just not feasible.
And if I can pick up from that point, I think in the marketing committee meeting the other day, Stephen, you mentioned we have case studies around the OAAA of around 65 case studies, and that sucks. I'm sorry. That's awful at this point. I mean, we can be really happy about it. We should have 600, not 60, right? We need to measure everything, and it's not about finding the ideal case study and making it perfect and having the exact right creative. Measure everything, build the benchmarks, take a place to grow, create aggregates that actually prove the case for this industry. It's not about getting every little case study right and perfect to make sure that client comes back and spends maybe 2 or 3% more. It's how the hell do you grow the industry 2, 3, 4, 5% more? And to do that, we need scale, and we need everyone with skin in the game saying, we're going to measure, we're going to run this. So we're investing in upgrading our data systems and platforms and how we go to market and how we measure. Really, that's what everyone needs to bring to the table as well. By this time next year, with the number of out-of-home campaigns that we run nationally, we should be from 65 to 650. That shouldn't even be a question as an industry, and we should be able to show those numbers and show our holding companies and clients and whoever it is, this is why you can now put your money here. You might believe out-of-home is great, but we're now proving to you that it really is, and here's where you can go next.
Yeah, I also think we just can't approach the industry, you know, as an overhaul with like this chip on our shoulder. being like, oh, look, your digital ads aren't being seen. You know, there's a ton of fraud. Out of home is far more brand safe. You know, if you think about it, a couple of years back, and this is one thing I just take issue with. And I'd love to say that we're awesomely brand safe, and you know, we can do so much more. Going back, like, how brand? I would say some of my clients would say that we're not that brand safe. If you think about some of the appearance of the actual formats themselves, I have a client. We've gotten about 750,000 in reparations and bonuses just on like lighting issues, paint, you know, the way the actual media format looks, and we want it to be visual, we want it to look great. And we're out here saying, oh, it's so brand safe, but it's like we can't. Oh, the lights are out, or there's graffiti, or something's flagging, and we can't get the right operational standards in place. So we just have to be very careful about approaching, you know, clients with this chip on our shoulder that out of home can do so much better, and we're wasting your money in digital when they know that they have to be in both places, and we should take a much more complementary approach.
Yeah, but humans are still seeing the ads, right? You know, versus.
Yeah, but if it
bots.
doesn't look good, I mean, we have
Okay.
plenty of clients. I mean, if you're going to buy a wall, you're going to buy a billboard. It needs to look good, right? So, I think this is something that we're kind of turning a blind eye to in terms of if we're going to get there. What's the inventory going to look like? And we should make sure that the inventory looks good if we're such a visual medium, right?
I mean, that's also an investment and, you know, a process and guidelines that our media partners, you know, and I believe they're taking very seriously, and these are trials and tribulations that we all go through. I think that, you know, they've definitely fine-tuned their practice over the years. Clearly, there's some work to be done, but I think that the comparison between us and the online world is a little bit different.
But I think, Ryan, to your point, I don't think we grow by bashing digital. Sure. I don't think we grow by throwing stones at another channel.
I like to bash
Which
digital.
will come back. I know you do. I do. But I don't think you grow by throwing stones at another channel, because they will ultimately throw back. There are going to be things that can be found and discussed. I think the way we grow is actually talking about how well out-of-home and digital, and out-of-home and mobile specifically, whether it's the search behavior, social, the fact that we're all basically interacting on our phones, and the single most present and prevalent instigator of that action is out of home. This is a story we can go forward with. This is something we can tell and share and grow together. You know, what I kind of want to avoid is, coming from that mobile background, we spent a decade always talking about the year of mobile, where it was just going to be this magic hit and it would happen. It didn't happen, right? Brands basically became disaggregated from your phone. New brands came in, but we just did the same old thing, never told a new story. We need to tell our story really well to avoid having basically out of home be just another disaggregated long tail piece of the funnel where we can't continue to bring our value forward.
I think you make the point. I mean, it all comes back to, you've got to be able to show performance, you've got to be able to talk about outcomes, and you've got to be able to be right with the data that you're able to provide clients that shows them marketable and material changes to their business based on having spent in this media and in this channel. And I think that's our obligation for those of us up here. I think it's our partners' obligation for those down there to come to consensus or at least approaches that are going to be flexible enough for our individual clients and yet still tell a larger story overall.
Oh, my turn? Thank you, guys. That was a great conversation. Let's talk about data a little bit. You were talking about measurement, how important that is. We all know that's important. Of course, Geopath is building a new protocol, a new measurement platform. What do you think some of the short-term and then long-term opportunities are going to be for our industry as we bring online the enhanced Geopath ratings? Christian?
So I think our short-term opportunity is to be much better at enabling both our planning and our buying through data. And I think in the longer term, enabling tech, and it's been a part of this conference as well, I've enjoyed that, to allow us to be much more efficient. In a fully transparent market where we have to run a lean and effective machine, and certainly with the pressure we're seeing from our large, not just national, but global clients, we are hugely dependent on our ability to continue that transformation, be more automated. So I think that will be key for the future.
Yeah.
I think, you know, rise of automation, obviously data really supporting our measurement system is absolutely key. I think also some of the trends that we're seeing is on, you know, in terms of a culture perspective, and we're seeing a lot more diversity, really interesting backgrounds to really support what we're doing. So we're seeing non-out-of-homers join the industry, so we definitely want to see more of that. So, and all of this sort of being refined and just fine-tuned to really support our industry.
You had a client, I don't know what year it was, but Google came out and talked. Do you remember at the conference? Yep. And they talked about something that's like haunted me since. And I don't think it was ready for prime time then. Maybe it was for Google, but now I think much more so for the industry. And I think the ratings will help, or the updated ratings will help. Where he talked about there's a custom side of our business and there's a code side of our business. And we will always have hand-selected premier locations that are necessary to be big, bold, and courageous and beautiful. And then there's going to be a coded side of our business where we need to fill an audience. And so long as the screens are good, stable, and able to provide that for us, that's a benefit. And so I believe now we're kind of at that point where we ought to be thinking about what is the custom and code side of our business, and what are the locations, and using the ratings in order to help that, but what are the locations necessary in order to be marquee, and then what is the fill-in necessary in order to get the audience penetration necessary to help convert consumers to take action.
Kind of an art and science question, right?
And very much so, and I think that, we talk about that every year at this conference, the art, the science, that is it to me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, from our perspective, having better measurement, having better data allows us to function more effectively inside of a holding company like Omnicom, who's rolling out a massive global platform called Omni that is ultimately going to get to a point where all channels can be measured and looked at. And when we talk about delivering audience or creating custom audiences, using first-party data, third-party data, we want to be involved in that conversation. And at this point, we're not ready for that. We're getting there. So as that progresses, as the new data measurement progresses and access to new data progresses, and we start to think about attribution, we want to be involved in that conversation with our agency partners who are working more closely with our clients and that are doing a lot of data transfer between whether it's a client DMP and Omnicom's DMP. So those are the types of conversations we want to be having, and we need that data to do that.
Yeah, and I think
Can there be too much data?
No.
no. I mean,
If it's
there-
relevant,
there's
not.
I think it's a
there's poor ways to use it, but they
I
don't
think
have
there can
too
be
much
data noise. Where
there's a
you're-
lot of data, right? I think it's a bandwidth question, right? It's if you're investing in DMP like we are with Ada, to sift through all of this important data to support our planning, or perhaps it's hiring a team of people, who can quantify and qualify the best data solution for your teams. But there is a ton of data. Yes, absolutely. It can get a little confusing. So you need the right tools, to support your process.
Yeah, right now I'm personally not thrilled with kind of the approach a lot of the industry is taking from a data perspective. There's a lot of disparate approaches. A lot of operators are taking their own approach. We're trying to do stuff with Geopath. I think it can add a bit of confusion. I think that there's a great opportunity ahead of us, and I think that we should probably work together a little bit more closely to come up with some consistent messaging to that. I think every day you wake up, there's a new blog post or an article about this new data out of home, this new data out of home, what this company's doing. I think because the suppliers are doing their own thing, they're also not sharing as much as what could be shared. So that's a concern to me right now. So I'm not thrilled about it. I think we can get to a point where we iron some of that out. And to Arena's point, probably I think some of the ways we look at it from a bandwidth perspective and how we're processing the data that's out there. But we've got to get some consistency out, and we have to get a consistent message to the greater marketing community and to clients, rather than just keep throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess as we're continuing to develop better platforms and better processes, we have to sort of, as an industry, get our arms around sort of the definitions, protocol, standards in a more meaningful way, so everyone's on the same page. But the data analytics clearly of our industry has improved dramatically in recent years. It's getting better all the time, and we've made great strides as an industry. So has this better analytics, this better insights that we provide now to brands and to agencies, has this helped you sell in bigger campaigns? I mean, have there been brands that have believed in the new out-of-home story, and are they spending more? Have you brought new brands to the table who weren't believers and who are now involved? Do you have some great successes that you can share with us?
Yeah. What I'll give you is two different cases. One from a grocery retail client who basically only did store openings. We ran a campaign with them last summer, figuring summer low TV viewership, perfect time, take advantage. The out-of-home campaign was through the roof, and we've actually taken a client that, on average, over the course of the year, we were lucky to have $1 million client, is now spending roughly on pace to 10 times that. Take another one, or another category, which we just heard a little bit about on stage before, but looking at direct-to-consumer and disruptors and really smart internet-savvy acquisition-heavy companies. They're starting off basically with in-house media because they're managing their digital acquisition efforts themselves. They understand what it costs to grab a consumer, what the value of that consumer is. They're doing a lot of the heavy math work. If you notice, a lot of these companies are running out of home. Right? You see them all the time, especially up and down New York. You see them in the subways, you see them on the streets. You see them in other key markets where they're fighting right now in land grabs. And we've been able, because I think they come from a more analytical background maybe than some of the traditional brands where they're more focused on models than straight acquisition calculations, they've been really open to taking the data we have and seeing how does out-of-home layer with what they're doing in digital. What's the impact when it's included? How do we look at exposed audiences and understand people who saw out-of-home and something on mobile or out-of-home and social, and start putting more models together that make sense for them and actually drive their business outcomes and business results, which is somewhat where this conversation started about 30 minutes ago, which is out-of-home can drive performance. Companies that are now looking at themselves as performance companies are looking at out-of-home in that vein, and the more data we can provide, the better we're going to be situated to take advantage.
I think every company is a performance company. I mean, whether they call themselves that, at the end of the day, they need something. They need to drive sales or whatever. We had a beer client that had never spent in the space before, and we did a test in Phoenix, and we're able to show them the results, not only of passed by a location, went into store, or went into their key retail locations, but then layering in their sales data to help identify what the trend would look like. And that prompted them to then take the campaign quasi-national. And for them, it was a huge investment. For us, it was a great opportunity to help grow a brand that probably wouldn't have spent if they just threw some billboards up in a marketplace and said, well, we think it worked. We don't know. And so getting to we know it worked, that makes a huge difference.
We had a theatrical client who had no data, no first-party data, which was quite difficult. So obviously low-hanging fruit proximity targeting, looking at obviously the Times Squares and Lincoln Center. And then, we pushed an envelope a little bit and really wanted to locate their audience. And so we decided to look into online behavior, looking at, people who frequented Broadway.com or LincolnCenter.org, or, people who purchased a ticket, in the past 80 days. Nothing so revolutionary, but it really did not only spark interest, it got more funding for it, obviously casted a wider net, but in addition to that, supplied them with enough data for them to use for their planning purpose. So, yeah.
And David, to something you said, I agree. I think every brand needs to look at itself as a brand marketer and as a performance business. The really interesting thing, if you go back to Nick Bryan's talk from yesterday morning, brands consider themselves national advertisers. They run nationally. They don't look at the local markets.
And every brand is a local advertiser. I mean, I've again said this for a while, but every brand, I don't care if you buy national television, the media itself is consumed locally, and the sales that are likely to be derived are driven locally. So every brand is a local advertiser.
And our most successful brands look at it that way. They go into each market tactically as opposed to just running national because, quite frankly, it's easier and faster to get to market.
And we've had some success with a little QSR client that we have who I think had a very historical approach to out of home. They were undergoing some major corporate overhauls in terms of operationally, from a real estate perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a supply chain perspective, and it forced them to make some difficult decisions in terms of what they wanted to do with their business from a marketing perspective. It was kind of like low man on the totem pole when it comes to we're going to serve people food or we're going to make sure billboards are up. So we worked with them to start to infuse data, and this is where the new Geopath ratings started that really helped because they had not been used prior. Many of these, much of their inventory was still based on the premise of DEC. So or proximity to a particular restaurant. So our ability to help them see that, the work that you're doing in out-of-home space can be done a little bit more efficiently. And we're measuring it more efficiently. So I think just going from that, and as we've evolved now, and the more that we work with them and use new data, and some new stuff that's out there from a third-party perspective, really starting to show them that we can be more impactful and much more efficient, and then still stack up with the same deliveries and get the same effect that they've had in market, to which being in their community is such an important part of their business. So, so I think we're definitely seeing some really great success stories along that line.
Speaking of your little QSR brand that you deal with, are they thinking about coming back a little stronger this next year?
We'll see. I'll keep the audience in suspense. But I think ultimately they need to
Is it Zaxby's?
they need to look at their business. I think they need to look at their business in a different way. I think out of home is still very much a core part of their DNA. And certainly I think their franchisee owners, and from a local perspective, it ranges. But I'd say for the most part, they're very passionate about it. I think McDonald's corporate found out how passionate they were, and I said their name, but I think how passionate, from a national perspective, how passionate the local franchisee owners were about out of home and what it meant to them. And so going back to this, finding this happy medium of being able to infuse data, but then still bring on, and maintain those historical attributes of out of home is really important.
So I agree with the local aspect, but I think what's more important certainly to us is to focus on what we can improve rather than what we have right. So yes, we have cases where we can see that, measuring the effect across various channels gave one of our large alcohol advertisers an increased ROI of 79%, and the following year, I'm super happy sitting there with the CFO seeing that their spend went up 11%. So I think we've covered that. And that's why I wanted to pick up on the local aspect, is what I think we certainly can improve is our ability to look at what first-party data a lot of our clients have. I think Ian from Lamar led a great workshop yesterday afternoon where we were looking at, how can we in dynamic content leverage some of that data to make sure that it's the right message at the right time to the right people. And that's certainly an aspect where I think that, even we at Posterscope can do a better job.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients have a lot of first-party data that we should be much, much better at leveraging and utilizing to their benefit and to the benefit of our industry.
And that should be a huge opportunity for us to work more closely in a two-way street with clients, because they're not always willing to give up, first-party data. I certainly don't walk into Mountain View or Cupertino and be like, let me show you all the great data. I can, they have some of the best data in the world. So when they talk, it's about working with them to show the opportunity and the potential of the medium, and then trying to get them to use their data in a way that makes them feel comfortable. We're very, very secure about that. So, and as far as from a transparency and a consumer privacy, these are all things that we need to consider, which is why we really have to take some baby steps in terms of working. But it could be a huge opportunity for us to work with clients and helping them kind of leverage their data in a different way.
And that goes back to what you were saying with case studies, right? I mean, obviously this is public knowledge, and so if they're so tight-lipped with their first-party data and the outcomes of what we're doing, then we're just never going to grow, right?
Can I ask, do you think, for each of you, and I'll tell you the answer I think right now for us is no, do you think you've got the right staff that's ready, capable to have these conversations? Because these are heady conversations to have, and they are intricate conversations to have, and do we have the right people helping us along?
I mean, learning academies are key, right? You absolutely want to make sure that as you're learning, your teams are learning alongside you. So if you don't have that, then only the strong will prevail. But if it really does start with education. It's about having the key conversations with the right players on the data, the tech, the media side, and if not understanding, getting to a place where you understand it.
I thought Rashad's bit about run the company that you need to run today to grow your business or have your business, and run the company simultaneously or concurrently that you need to have to future-proof your company. That's what I think we face right now.
I think that we're also doing better as an industry. I think the OAAA and Geopath are doing a great job. Are doing a great job in terms of having webinars. I think that we could do a little bit better in that respect. Hearing more on the client side, hearing their experiences as well, but also and then seeing how we can bring that back to the table and understanding who, out of all the data solutions and all the platforms that are available, what's the right fit, right?
To address your question, I think something that Rashad said was, you need to upgrade or change your people. I don't think anyone here is stomping around saying we want to change, but I do think what's really interesting is the upgrade idea and the fact that we can bring data and systems and platforms in, but it's still the people who drive this industry. I'll give credit. Barry Lowenthal from Media Kitchen once told me the key to his hiring to be able to build out a staff that thinks and can adapt to what's coming new is to hire curious people. And I've carried that with me. Mm-hmm. If you hire people who are very happy doing what they're doing today, it doesn't mean they're going to be happy doing what they're doing tomorrow. You hire people who are curious, they're going to proactively learn what data sets are available, how to apply it, what to do for measurement, where to bring us as programmatic comes more and more to the forefront. And I think that's where we have to really think about, are we bringing curious people to the forefront in all of our companies together so that they can advance the industry?
And to add to that, you have to cultivate it. You really do. You know, some people may not necessarily know that they're curious, right? But they love the industry.
I would also say that I think that sometimes we give our clients a little bit too much credit. A lot of this data is new to them as well. So I think they're learning just as much as we are. So I think really doubling down on your relationships, your closeness with your clients, and your ability to be there as an extension when it comes to anything happening in the out-of-home space, and help them just really understand where the potential lies. So when they're trying to figure out their data solutions, they know that they take that into account, and then we can start working on it to, in a much more collaborative process rather than just being kind of just trying to digest something that they throw at you, which might not be the right fit. So you kind of want to have that input when they're making these decisions. And again, this is very new for a lot of clients, and I think clients, you'd be surprised, clients, no matter the size, and quite honestly, typically, from my experience, the larger the client, the more difficulty they have sorting out their data solutions because they are very concerned about consumer privacy and what that might mean for them in transparency, and certainly what's happening in the challenges they're facing in the digital marketing space. And smaller clients, I think, figure it out because they know they're a little bit more about their business, they're a little bit more nimble, and probably more performance-based, so they can do it. So it's kind of really taking a custom approach to working with your clients and helping them understand the full capability of what's happening in the landscape, and then hopefully you're making a data decision alongside them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so obviously there's a lot happening in our business, a lot of really exciting things, a lot of remarkable transformation. Sort of today, though, if you could each sort of have your wish for the out-of-home industry, what do you wish the out-of-home industry could really do today to really improve the business in an impactful and powerful, important way? What's your wish for the industry, Christian?
So I think lean into the opportunities that we've spoken about here to truly change the perspective. Mm-hmm. I am impressed by the collaboration, I'm impressed by the mindset, but I am absolutely not impressed with the perspective and the ability to lean into the future.
Michael?
I think I echo, but I would actually put more stress on the collaboration side. I don't think there's really been much disagreement up here, but we've certainly gone through a lot of points around the industry. What we haven't necessarily done, and what I don't think we've come to, is you haven't heard 5 people talk and tell the same story. And we need to speak with one voice, and 1,200 people who are at this conference need to speak with one voice behind a story around how we move forward. It could be a broader story than one straight line, but we need to be able to move it forward together, or else we're all going to continue pursuing different paths, all still with the same goal, but pursuing different paths to get there, which is the slowest way possible.
I like that. I like that.
Take a little different spin. Yes, collaboration absolutely is key. I think if we're looking at an industry and we're kind of pushing that envelope a little bit, the level and the scale of how we're digitizing, whether it's not fast enough or we've got these different digital networks across the board, and they're not sold equally, and you're purchasing either a spot in the loop, or you're not able to buy based on audience, and there are too many discrepancies and hiccups, and just not a seamless solution. And that is sort of a bit of an issue that comes up quite a bit for our teams. If we want to create this very optimal campaign where we can optimize based on business outcomes, and you can't really do that across every single market. So I think as an industry, and understanding quite well, obviously, that media owners, it's a huge investment on their part, and there are lots of legal issues that they and hurdles that they have to go through. But it's definitely something that we have to all be mindful of, is just creating a platform that's very seamless across every single market.
Collaboration, yeah.
We'll like that.
Lean in, sure.
Yeah.
Data, yes. Audit platform. I think we should have a chip on our shoulder. I think we've got a phenomenal story to tell. I think we need to be out there telling it more often to bigger audiences, to audiences that not necessarily are from this industry. I think we have a really compelling story today. And I don't know if it'll always be that way, but right now I think we've got to capitalize on what the future is. And I think we can say digital fraud is probably something that you all clients can agree is a bad thing. And if you were to diversify, that would be good. And broadcast is in decline, and that's unfortunate, so maybe you should spend a little bit less. And nobody reads anything other than their phone today. So this media is right now feeling future-proof. Let's take advantage of that. Let's go out and scream about it and build platforms and collaborate together. But let's have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, because I think for years we were apologists. We didn't want to take up too much air in the room and thank everybody profusely for allowing us a budget. I don't want to thank people for that. I know what we're entitled to, and I know what we should be entitled to, which is probably that 8 or 9%. So let's go get it, because I don't think Nick Bryan or John or Kelly are going to make the mandate. We need to force it.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, last word.
Yeah, and I obviously there's a lot of agreement up here, but one thing that my clients have really been pushing for recently is sustainability. And I think it's something the industry can do a really good job with. Clients want to know that we're being responsible. They want to be more responsible across their business. So when it comes to recycling materials, when it comes to like low power, lighting and things like that, it's just something that's come up. And obviously don't want to continue to echo everything that's been said. We agree with it, but that's one thing I think. And I know it's a big initiative as part of the industry. And I think it's something we can do a really good job with, and it's something that we can really upsell to clients in terms of from a sustainable approach and moving forward to us looking less. It helps us look more than like an antiquated media format, which we're kind of coming out of. And I think it's one more piece that would certainly resonate with what a lot of my clients are doing with their everyday business practice anyway.
Great. Before we leave the stage, I'd like to ask each of you to leave the audience with one word. What one word best describes what out-of-home advertising is today? Ryan.
I was going to say chip, but no. I think it's opportunistic.
Opportunistic.
One word. Great.
Great. I like that.
Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis. Change.
In that vein, aggressive.
Aggressive. Christian.
So we are in Vegas. I'll do a happy hour and say fearless optimism. But seriously, and that's what I mean with the perspective. Why are we in Vegas, right? There is a 500% increase in searches near me, combining our opportunity, leveraging the opportunity to combine the out-of-home with the social aspect of it. We should be in Silicon Valley talking to the absolute digital leaders of how to leverage that. That's what I mean by the mindset and the opportunity ahead.
Christian got 2 words, so I'd like to say really great.
Really great. Super duper great. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, my friends are great out-of-home specialists. Give them a hand.